Love and Watches is a family-friendly podcast for male and female watch lovers alike. Perpetual Girl and Ranch Racer are a watch-crazy wife and husband team who've been wearing and collecting watches for more than 45 years. They enjoy bringing you the latest in collecting, interviews, news, and all things interesting in the world of watches. Enjoy the show.
Hey, Watch fam, this is Ranch Racer.
And this is Perpetual Girl.
And you guys are listening to the Love and Watches podcast. Thanks for joining us. We have a really exciting show today, and we'll tell you what's coming here in just a minute. We're going to do some wrist checks for you. And there was a little bit of news. We don't do a lot of news, but there is something that we want to talk about that everyone's been talking about, and we kind of want to...
It's been talked about over and over.
Yeah,
and...
like it always is. So we wanted to digest it for a week or two before we threw our highly coveted opinions out there in the interspace.
Because we know there are rules to watches, and we must
and,
follow them.
For all the millions that listen to us and so value our
They
opinions.
do. We have good people out there on the Watch fam, and hope everyone's doing good.
Yeah, we have a wonderful listening base. So we're just still dealing with fires. It got clear for a while, but now it's all smoked in again.
There's a brand new one. We've got some family members displaced.
Yeah, some family members had to evacuate, so not sure 100% what's gonna happen with them. We're just it's just day at a time. It's your typical 2020, I guess.
Well, and we have fire risk every year, so it's scary, and we have backpacks with clothes in it right by the door every summer. So
horse trailers ready to go, and kennels ready to shove geese and ducks into, and all that stuff.
So being prepared is always good.
Yeah. And it's just nice to have, lately, last week or so, the air quality's been better. We've actually been able to go outside without wet bandanas around our faces. So it's been a nice break. Let's just say that.
Just hoping for a cool down and some rain.
Hopefully soon. It's warming up again now, but hopefully get into winter here soon and out of fire season, which is always scary.
In the meantime, Rolex.
Should we do some rest checks first before we talk?
Let's talk about Rolex.
Let's go for it. So that's the big topic that everyone...
Rolex.
Yeah.
But we do we
They did their big announcement, right?
Yes, and we have some pieces in our collections.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're fans of the brand.
We are.
Let's be honest. We don't like the marketing and how it's hard to get them, obviously, like everybody else. But we do like the pieces. We like the watches a lot. Of
course, we each like different pieces in their a wide array of styles. So for me, the big news is the sub. They made it larger. But that's been justified by everybody in the watch fam that the lugs are narrower.
Yeah.
It's not quite pre-maxi case, but...
I haven't seen one. I'm still waiting to actually see one in person, and hopefully that'll happen soon. But it's hard to judge. I did that video a couple years ago. Like, it was one of our first on the bench videos on YouTube where I talk about watch sizes, and to not necessarily just look at
case size,
case diameter. There's so many other facets to the size of a watch, which is something you'll hear about in our interview today with our guest. But so it's... I don't like to jump to conclusions. I just thought it was very, very interesting in this day and age when there seems to be kind of a trend to bring sizes back down to more rational numbers, I guess, case sizes, that they actually bumped it, but there's other stuff involved. So I have to see one before I, make a judgment on it.
Well, I have to say initially the shock of bringing back the Frank Stella color palette.
Oh, for the OP.
The Oyster Perpetual.
Yeah.
Me being an art person, I actually studied Frank Stella in college. So it was exciting to see those brought back. However, the originals were in yellow gold with the fluted bezel, which I thought was really beautiful. And the new ones, I do like them. I like some colors more than others. But I think a bold color on a 41 diameter, that's a big statement. So... not everybody can pull that off.
I would have been really happy if they'd kept the 39 and not gone to a 41. And I think it's unfortunate they got rid of the 39 because I still have my blue dial 39 millimeter Oyster, and I love the size. And I've got good size wrists, but it's just proportionally, it just works. It's elegant looking but sporty at the same time. Mm-hmm. That is one that I'm a little bummed about, that they got rid of the 39s. But
I do like the 36 millimeter size, and even the 31. I think the 31 is going to be primarily for the ladies, but the 31 cases they don't wear too small. Of course, your resale on a 31, not everybody can wear that. So it's going to be, treated more like a lady's watch.
Yeah, and as we get closer and closer to the age of retirement, although I may never be able to retire, but as we do get up there, we do start thinking if we're going to spend, somewhat large sums of money on watches, that I want to make sure that as we get older, they're still worth something. It's nice to know that the collection's worth something. So,
right. That being said, I think that turquoise blue, which is pretty Tiffany-like, I'm kind of surprised they got away with that.
Oh, in the 36?
In the 36. Yeah. And even the red coral is really growing on me, because being a Western equestrian person living in the country, those two colors go together. So the more I look at them, they're growing on me.
I've seen that more and more, and I even feel that myself when they first released them. I think there was, there's always like tons
shock.
Of immediate reaction, right? People just react. There's not a lot of thought that goes into it. Everyone these days just reacts on social media. So there was a lot of negativity around the colors and, oh my gosh, what's Rolex doing? Who are they trying to appeal to? But a lot of people didn't know that was a collection, right? The Correct. Stella, and I didn't know that either until one of the larger blogs pointed it out.
No, I think your wife.
You might have mentioned it. I don't know. Did you know that Rolex had the Stella, or did you just? No, you said they reminded you of an artist that you studied in school, but we didn't. Right, neither of us knew about the watches.
And I was chatting, and I posted about it. I was chatting online with an online friend, and he said, "Oh, that's those," and it's like, that's but they were in yellow gold.
Yellow gold with the fluted, where these are stainless steel.
But boy, 41 on a lady in those colors, that's going to be
huge.
I think big. I think there's some ladies now that they want to wear all the largest watches they can just to prove a point that they can.
Right.
But it doesn't always look good. And if your lugs are hanging over the end and you can see air through it, you start getting into, a proportional.
Well, I said it before, and it probably angers some people, but the first thing I think about is like a young child who got dad's watch off the dresser and they're playing dress up with it, right? It's just, to me, that's what it looks like, but it's just my opinion. So,
but I think having it in a 36, I think a 34 might have been nice as well. 34, 36.
Is that what your OP is, a 34?
The 34 millimeter.
And did they keep the 34s? I don't remember. Or I think they did, but they don't have them in the Stella colors.
Not in the new colors.
Yeah. So I don't know. Again, for me, it's going to be one I'm going to have to see, which these days with Rolex is almost impossible, right? You have to basically say, I want it, and when it comes in, I'll buy it.
Well, 36 is the 36 is going to be closer to like an Explorer, vintage Explorer size, although my vintage Explorer is a 36, but it with the lugs,
right.
It is exactly the same size as the modern 34. So it'll be fun to see how they look. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to prejudge too much until I can maybe see them and try them on. But and I actually like that blue. To me, it leans more towards the feminine side. I don't know if that's PC to say anymore, but it is kind of more of a feminine color, I think. But I like it. I'd probably.
Well, it's like wearing a cambray or a denim shirt.
Yeah, and again, if they kept the 39, I'd be all over wanting one of the blue dials in the 39. But 41 is
36. You could probably share.
I don't know. 36 is getting pretty small for my wrist, so I don't know. I'd have to just see it, I guess. You always have to see it. It's impossible to make a judgment based on photos on the internet. Everyone tries, but it really is impossible until you actually get it on your wrist and see it in the metal. So
yes, I have friends who have purchased watches online and they get them and they don't like them at all. So
yep,
especially when you're going to invest.
It does happen. So, all right. So that horse is dead. We move on.
Please don't say that horse.
We killed the Rolex horse.
Please don't say that.
All right. Let's move on to wrist checks, and then we'll talk about our really special guest today.
I'll go first.
Yep.
I'm borrowing your Speedmaster Pro Moonwatch with the sapphire sandwich, and actually, you put it on this new band that we just got. That's actually, I love it.
The band itself is nice.
Very nice. It's white with black trim with the rally holes, and it's the flyboard leather and rubber from Watchgecko, and it looks so good on the watch. I mean, this is a strap monster watch anyway. You can put pretty much anything on it. It's comfortable. It's it bends. However,
It's very supple because it's rubber on the
is.
inside and leather on the outside.
It is.
So it's very comfy.
and it stays put even
It's
when
soft.
it's a little bit loose.
Yeah, it's a nice one.
But the tail is so long. The tail goes around and actually almost touches the case.
I know. It's even too long for me, and I have 7.5 inch
So
wrists.
I'm not sure
I don't get it.
I'm not sure if this was made for Fred Flintstone.
Maybe if you had 9-inch wrists,
But-
you wouldn't see the tail.
I mean, I just took it off and put it on a regular strap. And look at the size
Yeah,
of that.
I
So
know.
I think if you're going to have a strap like this is a really high quality strap, and it is pretty pricey. Yeah. It should be offered with a different size tail.
Yeah, there are other manufacturers that'll even send you 2 different size tails when you buy one, but at least give me the option of selecting a tail length. Or at this price, you're getting into the specifying your length and then having it custom. So that would be for me the only drawback. It's a gorgeous, and what's this? It's called a rally style, right? Or it's got the small holes, not the big gigantic holes in the center, but the smaller holes. So I think it's considered a rally style. Really neat band, and it's perfect with the Speedy. I mean, it really looks great with the Speedmaster. It's probably what most people buy it for, but it's just, gosh, that tail is so long.
This would look nice on the Explorer too.
It would. It'd probably look good on the Sub. I'll have to try it on the Submariner.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look too bad, but it does look like I'm wearing your watch with the strap
Yeah,
touching the case like that.
If the tail was underneath your wrist, so you didn't see it when you're looking at the watch, it wouldn't look like that. But because the tail comes all the way around, it just accentuates the fact that you're wearing a bigger watch on a smaller wrist. So
the tail is literally maybe 5 to 8 millimeters from the lug.
Yeah, it's
from
very close
from the spring bar.
Yeah,
but it's still comfortable. I don't feel it.
Yeah,
but if you guys out there aren't
if you like NATOs and you don't care that you've got that big chunk at the top of your wrist, then you'll love this.
That's the thing is I know people are NATO fanatics and they love NATOs, but it's one of my bugaboos to have all these folds folded in and out and under and over, and you've got these 3 layers of NATO strap giving the width of your wrist that sticks off about 1 inch on each side. It's like, wow, that's a lot of fabric.
It definitely draws your eye away from the watch, which I don't think is necessarily a positive thing because you're looking at something else. But a lot of people like the NATOs. I usually, if it's got the little tail on it, I'll usually cut the little tail off because then I can hide the tail underneath. But so yeah, I mean, if you guys have a bigger wrist or you're looking for a cool strap for a Speedmaster, it is a really, really nice strap, and that's the Watch Gecko flyboard leather rubber water resistant watch strap. So.
And again, this one's white in the center on the top, and then the black on the inside.
The black rubber,
they make a yellow, a brown, and a blue. Yep. Yellow's pretty too.
Yeah, great looking, and they make it in a 20 and a 22 millimeter lug width. So cool.
And how about you?
So, okay, I guess the horse we haven't beaten the horse to death yet. So I'm wearing a watch that's new to our collection. We haven't talked about it on the podcast, and we haven't really even posted it much. I think you've posted it a couple times on the Love and Watches account on Instagram. But
during our virtual cruise, I think.
That's right, yeah. So we got this a little over a month ago when we were doing our virtual cruise in the backyard. It's a watch that we've both kind of coveted for a while and seriously considered, and when the opportunity, and I had let Randy at our local AD, which you guys are going to be hearing more about soon here, I let him know we were interested in it, and so when the opportunity came, we went ahead and took the plunge, as it were. So I am wearing the Rolex Milgauss, and this is what do they call this? It's the green dial.
Blue dial, green crystal.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I'd have to look it up on their website. There's a specific name they've come up with for this, the greenish blue dial or whatever. And it's got the green tinted sapphire crystal and the orange lightning bolt seconds hand. It's just really neat. A little bit maybe outside of the kind of norm that you see with Rolex.
That's kind of the Rolex for the nerd.
I guess you're calling me a nerd, is what
to
you're
resist,
saying?
the Gauss
Yeah, I mean that's what it was originally for, right? It was for scientists who were around large magnetic fields, and so it was the movement was protected up to 1,000 Gauss. You know, they've got a special cage in there that does that protects it from. And I think, you know, more modern, newer watches, they can get much higher magnetic resistance than 1,000. So it's not necessarily a functional thing anymore, but it's part of the history of the brand. But it is very thick because of that internal cage. Mm-hmm. And so you've worn it several times. Mm-hmm. I think it looks fine. It is big for you. It's a 41, I think.
The lugs curve down quite nicely, though.
They do. The lugs curve down nice.
Which it needs to support that top. It's almost a little bit top heavy, the center of gravity.
It's very top heavy because it's a thick case. And then you've got the sapphire crystal. It's just a box crystal that stands up above the top of the bezel. So very shiny, a lot of polished center links, fully polished case, sides and top on the lugs. And there's a lot of very shiny.
A lot of fear of scratches. Like the Santos. I
haven't worn it as much as I thought I would, only because of that, because we got so many scratches on the Santos, and even my
That's my fault.
The Grand Seiko has gotten scratched up because there's so much polished, so many polished surfaces. So,
but we do wear our watches.
We do. They don't just sit in the cases. We do wear them. So I've been trying to wear this one a lot because
I think it looks handsome.
It's a great looking watch. And I think you could wear it in dress occasion or whatever.
It's pretty.
So that's mine. All right. Well, who are we talking to today?
We are talking to Vortic Watches, RT Custer, and we spent quite a bit of time talking, and we probably could have kept talking longer. So
neat guy. You guys have probably heard. I know he's been on some other podcasts. You guys have probably heard him, but there was some recent developments with the brand that has kind of put him back out there. And it's a brand I've followed from pretty much from the beginning, from their Kickstarter campaign in 2014. I did not partake in that campaign, which I kind of regret now because they're not inexpensive watches, but I think they're less expensive than what the true value you get out of them. Really neat watches, but more importantly, a really amazing story about American entrepreneurship and, the whole made in the USA and what does it really mean and what should it mean, and helping veterans and just all kinds of really, really neat stories. And we could have stayed on with RT for a lot longer, but he's a busy guy and doing a lot of interviews and stuff. So it was fun to get him on the show, and hopefully we'll have him back again, because you guys are going to hear some fun stuff, including some stuff that you'll hear for the first time. And it was fun. I don't know about you, but I really had a good time.
And we have pocket watches in our collection that we've collected over the years, and some are the brands that he works with. So we initially were drawn to his company because of that collection, and interest in the old brands, Elgin, Hamilton,
Illinois. Yep.
And there are more, but those are the biggest. And he'll tell us all about that, about the history and some of the statistics.
Yep. Really, really fun time. Fun interview with RT, and we hope you guys enjoy it. I don't want to spoil it. There's just so much we talked about and so many fun things. And it really, if you're into unique items and you're into
history
and kind of preserving history and preserving our past and
our legacy.
Yeah. And just you enjoy pride and workmanship, kind of the basics in life. And it really is, it's a neat story. So I think with that, let's get to RT. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Guys, here you go. Here's some time with RT Custer from Vortic Watches. All right, and we are here sitting down with RT Custer from Vortic Watches. We're really excited to have RT on. It's a brand that I've been following for a while. And you started following them a little bit ago, and we were able to hook up with RT. So, hey, man, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you've been through a lot in the last few years that we're going to talk about. I think I would probably say that a majority of our listeners probably know about Vortic, but just for the benefit of those that maybe haven't heard of you or don't know a lot about the brand, why don't you give us a little background on yourself and, how this all came to be and how Vortic appeared on the scene all those years ago?
Yeah, so Vortic Watch Company was basically a crazy idea that my business partner Tyler and I had on the golf course after class one day at Penn State University. He was a math major and I was studying industrial engineering, and we both knew almost nothing about watches, but we started the conversation about watches because he took a bad shot with a watch on and basically blamed that poor golf shot on the watch kind of moving around on his wrist while he took his swing. and I was giving him, feedback on how I don't know if that's why you actually hit a bad shot. I feel like that's kind of a cop out. And long story short, that just kind of started a conversation on, I wasn't really wearing watches at that time, but I was fascinated by watches, and he knew a fair amount about watches, especially he really liked vintage Timex at the time. All of us do, really, vintage anything, but he was telling me just everything he knew about watches. And what we got into was where the watches are made. And at that time, this is 2011, 2012, we were just kind of starting to talk about it. Almost no watches were made in the United States. At that time, we didn't know about RGM. He was really the only one then. And then that was prior to Shinola kind of getting off the ground. And so we spent the whole rest of the golf round just talking about, I wonder if we could make a watch completely made in USA. And that's the whole idea. And it took years to kind of get off the ground, and a ton of research, stumbled on the old pocket watches. And we launched the American Artisan Series on Kickstarter in November of 2014. And the rest is history, I guess.
Yeah, it really is a neat story. And so for listeners, really what it is you guys take old pocket watches that may or may not be functioning at the time. You pull out the movement and the dial. And you put them into your own custom wristwatch case, right?
Yeah, so most of the pocket watch, it's the movement dial in the hands, and most of them come without their original cases because pawn shops around the country, they scrap the original cases for gold or silver. And so we get, we call them, just loose movements. They don't have any case, any glass to protect them at all. And we typically find them by the hundreds, because when a pawn shop does something like that, they scrap 100 pocket watches at once, melt them all down for the gold or the silver, and move on. And thankfully, some pawn shop owners are wise enough that they know that those movements are still valuable, and they keep them, and they somehow make it to us. We go to auctions, estate buys, we work with auctioneers. Anytime they find valuable pocket watches, I'm pretty much the only one in the U.S. that buys 100 pocket watches at once. So
I would imagine.
So there must be a list somewhere that I'm on that's like, hey, if you got a bunch of pocket watches, call RT at Vortic, and yeah, we buy everything we can because we look at it as preserving American history, and that's really true.
Well, it is, and you were literally preserving everything, including the name on the dial, and it's all the stuff that was built all those years ago by those original American manufacturers.
With all the color changes that happen over time to the dial. It's
phenomenal, yeah.
The styling, the font.
Yep. Very cool.
Yeah, it's amazing what they built back then. We call them the Great American Watch Companies. There was roughly 10 of them, and most of what we make, it was made between about the year 1900 and the year 1950. Pocket watches were made prior to the year 1900, but around 1900 is when industrialization and mass manufacturing really started, and so they made a lot of the same thing, and so we can find extra parts and spare parts to restore them if they're not more than 120 years old. And then around 1950 is when most of, if not all of, those watch companies started to go out of business, and all watch production moved to Switzerland or China. And so that's really the 50-year time period that we focus on. And that was an amazing 50 years for the United States. A lot of really awesome stories occurred then, and I mean, just Art Deco as a time period and design style.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, PG is an art major, so you start talking about art, and you'll get her attention real quick.
I'll get you very confused though, but it's so interesting to see your work, because Rand Tracer does have his own small collection of vintage pocket watches, and our local jeweler, he passed away sadly, and his personal collection was for sale. So we slowly bought, I would have to say, half
Probably
of them.
Most of it.
Probably
at least half,
of them.
if not more.
And they're brands like Elgin and Waltham.
Yeah.
Some of them have full Hunter back and front opening cases, really gorgeous pieces. So to see those made into a watch like you're doing, knowing the story about the pawn shop is, I think,
That's really
fascinating.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, speaking of brands, are there specific brands that you guys focus on and deal with, or is it will you resurrect kind of any American pocket watch?
Yeah, so we call them, the great American watch companies, and there's 10 on that list. There's a few others that we can work with, but just like any industry, there was a few companies that made most of the watches. The 80-20 rule, 80% of the production were made by 20% of the companies. And so those three were Elgin, Waltham, and Illinois. Elgin made 55 million pocket watches in their lifetime. Wow. Waltham made 40 million, and Illinois made 15 million. The fourth largest was Hamilton, and they made 5.5 million. So if you compare the scale of those, I mean, Elgin and Waltham were basically 80% of the industry, just those two companies. Yeah. And I'm talking about just American pocket watches. And Elgin and Waltham also were around for over 100 years each. They were the big ones. So you can kind of compare them to the car manufacturers today. You got Ford, GM, and then there's all kinds of other car manufacturers, but the big ones make most of the cars. Right. If that makes sense.
Yep. No, that makes perfect sense. Now, you did mention one brand in there, and we're going to talk about it for a second. We know you've been through some tough times in the last few years, and some of our listeners probably don't know the whole story about what happened with Hamilton and Swatch and a lawsuit and some recent outcomes there that were just phenomenal for you guys. So what the heck happened? I mean, how did that all get started? And I believe it started from an ad in a magazine and kind of snowballed from there. So let us know, tell us what the heck happened and where you are now.
Yeah, so the lawsuit's called Hamilton v. Vortic. And basically, just like you said, we salvage the original dial, hands, and movement from these old pocket watches. Hamilton was the fourth largest watchmaker. They made over 5 million pocket watches. And so we inherently found some Hamilton pocket watches and turned them into wristwatches. Those wristwatches still say Hamilton on the dial, and it says Vortic on the back. And Hamilton the trademark for Hamilton is owned now by the Swatch Group, which is a $10 billion Swiss conglomerate.
Yeah, not exactly a small little podunk operation.
No, and Hamilton is obviously a subsidiary of Swatch, but they are still probably $100 million company at least. And so, long story short, they didn't like that we were, in their words, putting their name on our product. And we got a cease and desist in May of 2015. And so we've been fighting this lawsuit for over 5 years. And finally, on September 11th, 2020, we received word from a federal judge that the United States justice system sided with us on all counts, and the case was closed, and we won. We defeated the world's largest watch company in federal court. So best news I've ever received. And we got him, and we never did anything wrong. And for me, it was ultimate validation, because I thought we never did anything wrong. I had a feeling, the legal system would side with us. All of my friends and customers said, this is awesome. You really need to keep doing this. And and we fought, and we won.
What a story. That is just, and it was 5 years of being dragged through all that.
Imagine.
I mean, it had to be trying on you, I'm sure. I mean, you were into this for maybe a year before that hit your business. So just the fact that you had to deal with that for so long is amazing.
Yeah, when we got the cease and desist, we hadn't yet shipped a single watch. We launched in 2014, late 2014 on Kickstarter, and you guys know how Kickstarter works. We hadn't actually manufactured and started shipping the watches yet. Right. And so I just thought it was a mistake. I was just like, I found the CEOs of all the companies on LinkedIn and reached out to them and just said, hey, can we have a cup of coffee and talk about this? Because I think if you gave me a chance to explain myself, I think you'd actually really like what we're doing. And I'm almost, in my mind, giving you free advertising because I'm promoting the history of Hamilton.
Right, and these were movements that were essentially scrap out of like a car. A roller pulled the engine out. They sold the outside, and these movements were laying around doing nothing.
Yeah, and the worst of it was about 20% of our business is what we call convert your watch, where if you have a family heirloom pocket watch, you can mail it to us and we'll convert it to a wristwatch as a service. We're the only company in the world that does that as like a primary core function of a business. And a lot of the pocket watches that people were sending us were Hamilton pocket watches. And that, to me, that was why I fought. That's why I dug my heels in and said, there's no way this is wrong, because the customer knows exactly what they're doing. Like, they are putting their grandpa's pocket watch in a box and mailing it to me, and I'm converting it to a wristwatch, restoring it, and preserving it for them. I mean, zero confusion from the customer, right?
Yep.
So, and that's really what the lawsuit was all about. It was trademark infringement and counterfeiting is what they alleged. And so all of that kind of stems into making sure the consumer is not confused.
Right.
And I knew that my consumers were not confused. And so I was just like, this can't be wrong.
Yeah. Well, and the judge I read the statement from the judge, and it was 100% right. I mean, counterfeiting is such a different animal. It's when you're trying to pass something off as something it's not, which is not what Vortex is about at all. You guys are about restoring history, and it is amazing because you get these big brands that have teams of lawyers that are just they're just sitting there looking for a fight, right? And we've been through similar things in the past, not with the podcast, but with other things, and it's like they're just looking for something to go stomp on somebody. And the fact that this was kind of a David versus Goliath, and David won is really... It's a great story.
And essentially,
it really
you're helping them, like you said, promote their name, and you're preserving the history, the wonderful history of the company in a modern, strong case to protect this person's heirloom or this piece of American history. So I think that person who essentially went after you was doing Hamilton a disservice, by kind of stopping.
Lawyers do need to earn their pay, right? So they're looking for ways to earn their pay, right?
I know, but I'm just looking at the historical side of it. But
yeah.
And now these watches that come in, are you servicing them to make them serviceable? And I kind of wanted to get into that sort of thing with your team of watchmakers. And I do know about the Veterans Watchmakers Initiative. And I know that you're involved in that personally, your company. Yep. And the podcast here, we're involved in it because we're going to be getting, we're on the list for the Traveling Watch Project. So I think it's awesome that we're kind of connected in that way. So I'd love to hear more about your involvement with the Veterans Watchmakers Initiative.
Yeah, well, going back to your original question, basically the first step, if you send us your grandmother's or grandfather's pocket watch and we convert it to wristwatch, or if you buy something from our website that the movement probably came from a pawn shop or what have you, the first step is restoring the movement. And I use the word restore, even though a lot of people say like a cleaning or a service. These things are 100 years old, so the word cleaning or servicing just doesn't even come close to getting to the level of need that they have. And so we fully restore each piece. We try to get the antique pocket watch movement working just as well, if not better, than when it left the factory 100 years ago. And we have a small team of watchmakers that are actually around the country. And they all currently, except for the school, the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative, all of our other watchmakers have been restoring pocket watches longer than I've been alive. And they like to remind me of that periodically when I ask questions. And I'm going to turn 30 this year, so I am fairly young, but all that to say, very highly skilled watchmakers, love working on pocket watches. They love what we do for all these reasons that we're talking about right now. And I love working with them for all those reasons. And when we found out about the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative, it was perfect because the biggest problem we have in our business is there's not enough watchmakers. There's not enough people to do the servicing and the restoration on these pieces. And you both as collectors probably feel this too, as do most Americans who like watches, and especially those who like vintage watches. There's not very many people that know how to work on them. And when you send your watch off to get serviced, you might not see it for 6 to 12 months. You know?
And then they come back not even fixed. That's happened to us too.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's not their fault. It's there's like maybe 100 of them in the country, right? So the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative is solving that problem for us as a company, but for us as a nation. But more importantly, they're solving a bigger problem, which is giving purpose to disabled war vets. And I couldn't possibly love that organization and what they stand for more. Both my grandfathers served in World War II. They were both, businessmen and entrepreneurs afterwards, and they both credited a lot of their success to just the diligence and patience and hard-working ability that they learned by serving our country. And so, yeah, I love everything about Sam at the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative, and I will continue to do everything I can to help them and support them because, it's just amazing.
And we totally agree. I have an uncle, a brother-in-law who's just recently retired as a career Air Force person, and Ranch Racer's dad was in the Navy as well as his uncle. Yep. So when I see you talking about projects that could potentially change so many people's lives, it totally brings me back to all the WPA projects back in the day. And those were simpler projects, but they actually got people in accomplishing important things, giving them jobs. This is a valuable skill that is essentially going away with new generations. So I just hope this gets huger and huger for you.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and it's a little bit double dipping sometimes because when these students graduate, they might come work for me. So I'm hopefully paving the way for more jobs for these people as well. But worst case, we're giving back to people that I know need it and I know will make a difference because they already have.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, and you've got some future plans along the lines of the Veterans Watchmakers Initiative and partnering with them. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so, every year we come out with what we call the Military Edition, where we use Hamilton pocket watches that say GCT on the front. They were the Master Navigator's pocket watch during World War II, and they were made for the United States Army Air Corps back then, and were flown on all the B bombers. So we take 50 of those, turn them into wristwatches, and sell that limited edition once a year on Veterans Day, and $500 from each watch goes to the school. Last year we sold out in like 8 hours, and immediately, as soon as we could, donated $25,000 to the school. We will continue to do that every year. This year we have a whole bunch of extra stuff. We have a special edition of 15 on top of the 50, so we'll do 65 watches this year. Same deal, $500 from each will go to the school. And then this is actually the first time I'll even say this anywhere, we saved serial number 1 of the first edition, and we didn't sell it, and we're going to auction that off, which I think will bring 10,000 or more just by itself. And we'll also donate 100% of that to the school. So we have a lot planned just for what we call our military edition launch this year. And we're going to the school on Veterans Day, November 11th. We'll be in Odessa, Delaware at the school, do a live launch with all their students and their whole team.
Oh my gosh.
And I will write them a check in person for that donation that day, because we expect to sell out. I think we have 3,000 people on the waiting list for only 50 watches.
Whoa.
So hopefully that's a good day for all of us this year. And then at some point next year, just as soon as we can get the 501c paperwork done, Vortic will launch the Vortex School for Advanced Manufacturing. And we're going to teach young people how to become watchmakers and machinists with a focus on micro machining and advanced industries like 3D printing and metal 3D printing, because that's what my business partner and I are passionate about. And that'll basically be a sister organization to the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative, not focused on veterans, just focused on any person. We'd like to focus on people right out of high school who, maybe college isn't right for them. Who knows? Maybe college doesn't exist in the future.
Yep.
It's a thing. But there's a huge skilled trade gap, especially in watchmaking, but definitely in machining and CNC machining and just manufacturing, which goes against everything you might think, because American made is so popular right now, but there's not enough people to make in America. So anyway, we're really passionate. My business partner, Tyler, and I are really passionate about, obviously, made in America, but giving all these skills that we've learned back.
Man, that is a fantastic story, and I can't wait to see all that evolve.
My mouth is just open.
Yeah,
I can't.
It's really cool.
I mean, those skills are such crossover in so many different industries here. And years ago, we used to be strong, and we had whole entire cities working in
manufacturing
things. So it would make sense if there's a need for these people to have a fantastic skill. It starts here. It starts with someone.
Watchmakers, for sure. And watchmakers don't have to work on watches. Like, if you get a watchmaking degree and you are really good at working with tiny little parts, you can go to work for almost any manufacturing company. I mean, we read a story about someone who went to work for NASA, and there's tiny little instruments on the space shuttle that need to be assembled, and they need to be perfect every single time because someone's life is in danger. Literally, and who better to do that than a skilled, military veteran for NASA? So that's really cool, and I think a lot of the machinists that we train will go work for, Tesla, Google, assembling. Like, what if Google brings some of their phones or electronic equipment assembly over to the U.S.? Somebody's got to do that.
Yeah.
So there's some cool stuff coming down the pipeline, and there's gonna be a lot of jobs available for those people.
Well, I spent 10 years in aircraft maintenance with a major airline, and I'd say more than 75% of our employees were ex-military, and they were older men. I was in my 20s at the time, so I was an oddity there. So that was really interesting to see that industry. But those people are all retired now. So we, as those jobs weren't filled, we got to get people back in them and continue, because the work was good. The work was good quality work that I saw on our aircraft, and people are flying in my planes. So I get it. I get it. Now, speaking of these movements and creating your cases, you've used the 3D printers. And I personally have noticed that, you're using a primarily larger size pocket watch. Are there any thoughts of moving towards a smaller, I think?
Yeah, because if you look at
12
like the pocket watch sizes and your case sizes, like I think a 16S movement, which is around 43 millimeters, so you end up with the 49 millimeter case size, or a 12S, which is around 40 millimeters roughly, you end up with a 46 millimeter. So, Yeah, what are there plans to maybe use like a 0 or a 6S?
Something
right?
for someone that was looking for in between a 38 and a 40, or a 36 and a 40, 41, which would fit, a female or a smaller man.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. So I can get into grave detail about all that stuff if you'd like, but let me give you the one thing that was one of the hardest things for me to learn as an entrepreneur and a salesman. I am a fantastic salesperson. I love talking to customers. I love the art of the sale, the psychology of marketing. I love that more than engineering. But the hardest lesson I had to learn is that not everyone is a customer, and that's okay. And that's really how I would answer this question, is that most pocket watches made 100 years ago, I mean, probably 75% of them were either 12 size, like you said, which is a 46 millimeter wristwatch, or 16 size, which for us is the 49, like the military edition, or some of them are even bigger because they have to be, like our railroad edition is 51. That's what we do. That's what we always will do. And we will not make anything smaller as Vortic Watch Company than a 46. Maybe we can make the case a little smaller using advanced manufacturing techniques and get it down to like 44, 45 over time as we just perfect the engineering. But that's pretty much it. Like you said, there are movements that were made in the 0 size and the 6 size, which would make smaller watches. First of all, they didn't make very many of those. And second of all, 100 years ago, those smaller pocket watches were either made for ladies or what they call the gentleman's pocket watch. They were much more jewelry and marketed like jewelry back then 100 years ago than they were tool watches. The larger pocket watches were used on the railroads and used every day by anyone doing any kind of work. Those smaller watches were designed to be in your vest pocket and worn only on special occasions.
Or like my nurse's watch.
They're a lot more fragile.
Yeah,
sure.
I have a pin on nurse's piece that's small.
Yep, and so they were a pin, they were a brooch, they were worn around your neck. Nurses used them, hung upside down around their neck. But that's it. There weren't very many of those, and there's no other word, they're fragile. And so we have tried, we've made a few of them, but they can't get to the level of quality that Vortic watches are supposed to be. And so we're not willing to put our name on something that's not perfect. And so we're just not willing to make it.
I get it. The DNA just isn't there. And I know firsthand from my pendant watches that it'll work one day, and then I walk out to get something in the garage, and then it doesn't work the next day, and it's swinging around, and now it's just jewelry.
Yeah.
And as a marketing major,
the customer service, issues that you receive from things like that are not worth it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And as someone with a marketing degree and someone that's in sales as well, that was a perfect answer. I will tell you though, there's a huge sad face across the table from me. You can't see it right now, and don't be surprised if PG keeps hammering on you. So I'm just warning you right now.
So two things I can do to solve that. One is you and we talked about this before we hit record, is you need to see one in person. So maybe I can send you a sample of our 12 size. It's 46 millimeters, but I'm an engineer, and you're just going to have to trust that I put myself and my business partner, we put everything we have into taking a 46 millimeter watch and making it fit your wrist like a much smaller watch. We have a lot of women with small wrists, men and women with smaller wrists, that love our watches because, first of all, we use titanium for everything. So the watch is very light. We wrap the lugs around your wrist so it wears very well and it's balanced very well. We use a heavy, thick leather strap so that it balances as you move your wrist. And then the crown's at 12 o'clock, which is also really cool and a fun conversation starter. But when you think about it, having the crown at 12 o'clock makes the whole watch feel and look much smaller. So we did everything we could to make these as wearable as possible, and we get nothing but fantastic feedback about that, on our reviews. And we have I mean, probably almost 100 5-star reviews on Google, Facebook, and website right now of people saying, I thought this was going to be bigger. I thought this was going to be too big, but it's not. And so you kind of just have to see it in person to feel it. So that's one thing I can do to help solve that. And the other one is another thing we're working on, which we'll launch. We're going to do some prototypes next year. We'll probably officially launch the brand in 2022. But our new brand, it'll be a sister company of Vortic, and it's called Custer and Wolf, which is my last name and Tyler's last name. And we're going to take all of the beautiful vintage and antique designs that these old pocket watches have, and then our industrial Americana, case design style, and put that into a whole separate brand that's as much made in America as we can, but is, the 40 millimeter average size that everybody wants right now.
Gotcha. And then so that would use most likely like some sort of off-the-shelf movement?
Yeah, a Swiss,
Yep.
or maybe even a Miyota, depending on the price point we're after.
Yep.
There are companies working on, setting up assembly facilities for foreign movements in the U.S., so at least the movement can be assembled in America.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're doing it under a different brand, so that it doesn't have to be 100% American made, and Vortic Watch Company can continue that, because that's really what we stand for. But we're also solving this other problem of, how do we scale the company? Because we can't make very many pocket watch conversions a year. And that's one, we could make thousands of those watches. And B, how do we perpetuate these amazing designs that are one of a kind that you can never see again? We could make an homage of that, basically.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. I'm looking right now at the Springfield 218 with the grayish dial. It's got the gold font, the gold crown with it's like the second to last one on your page there. And it is just,
Yep.
the designs, the fonts, the Elgin to the right with the center circle with the braided rope. These are all
Yep.
They're gorgeous.
totally timeless
People don't
Art
make
Deco.
things.
No.
Yeah, people don't make things like that today. And so we could make 100-piece limited edition or 1,000-piece limited edition that looks like that watch. And we can even use a picture of that watch to say this design of this watch was inspired by the Springfield 218 that was made in 2020, et cetera, et cetera. Never to be seen again. It was one of a kind, just like all Vortic watches are totally one of a kind. So it's yours and yours alone forever. We could make 1,000 or 100 that look like that, but that are 38, 40, 42, but everything else looks the same. And so that's our next step, and our next big thing for Vortic is coming out with a whole nother brand and having it be scalable and also achievable. Like we want our price points for that brand to be in the Shinola price point, $800 to $1,500 or so.
Right. As opposed, I think most of your stuff starts around 2,000 right now, right?
2 to 2,000 to 10,000 is our
Yep.
current price point.
Yep. Now, one thing that you kind of touched on, and you talked about it a little bit regarding your new initiative coming up with bringing, kids maybe right out of high school, but it's not exactly going to be what you would consider necessarily your classic watchmaking curriculum, because you come from an engineering background, and as unique as your product is, something else that was very unique about it, and I don't know if anyone else had done it previously, your American Artisan series, the cases were actually 3D printed titanium.
Yep.
What was the decision? How did you make that decision? Was it a costing or price decision, or just something you wanted to do that was different from what's out there? Because it's 3D printing it's a very unique look, right? And I know some of your newer lines, like the Railroad or the Military, they're actually CNC machined out of a single billet. So talk a little bit about the 3D, because I think that's really fascinating that you made that decision when you first launched the brand.
Yeah, thank you. So Vortic Watch Company created the first 3D printed metal case for production in the watch industry. And Panerai, I think, says they were first, but Panerai's marketing team just doesn't know. They probably still don't know we exist, so I don't fault them for that. It's totally fine. We'll be friends someday when I get big enough to get on the radar.
Right.
And to answer your question, we did it because I thought it was cool and I wanted to do it, and it's awesome. So 3D printing in titanium is called direct metal laser sintering, and it is the coolest thing on the planet. You start with a bed of powdered metal that looks like a thin layer of sand, and 4 lasers shoot down from the top that you can't see, and just slowly, in about 10 hours, these cases just grow out of a bed of sand, or in this case, powdered titanium. And then you let it sit, and it kind of bakes and finishes, and then in a matter of basically overnight, you're holding a finished part that's completely done. It needs a little work here and there, and a little clean up around the edges, and some machining for the O-rings and stuff. But the fact that you can go from idea to product in that little of time is why 3D printing exists. But many people don't know you can print in metal, especially titanium. Titanium's a very hard metal to work with in every way. And so the look in somebody's eyes when I can hand them a watch and I say, this was 3D printed from titanium, and I just blow their mind in 5 different facets, it's so cool. And the point of Vortic Watch Company, obviously we salvage and restore antique American history, but Vortic is Vortex and TikTok, a beautiful clash of old and new. And that's what that is. It's 100 years old on the inside, a piece of American history that you can stare at and look through the glass like a museum, but the outside is cutting edge technology that nobody even knows exists. And so all of that is why I do what I do, because I'm building a conversation piece. I'm not creating a watch.
Well, with that 3D printing technology, I'm looking at your Boston 364 right now in detail. And it says that this is also one of the 3D titanium, correct? The laser printed. Mm-hmm. When you look at that bezel, the top has a little bit of a texture that kind of reminds me a little bit of I have a 1920s ladies bulova. And people didn't put a lot of precious gems in there because they didn't just have them. So they did a lot of intricate carving with the metal. So that even though it's a new case, it does give you that flavor of some of the design metalwork to give you those bevels and edges to kind of pick up some light.
Yeah, we did that on purpose too. So the bezel of the 3D printed cases is printed on an angle, and it's the perfect angle to show off the layers in which it was printed. I think of it like Colosseum style. So if the watch is printed flat, so the diameter of the watch is facing straight up at you on the bed of metal, and as you grow it, as you print it, the bottom of the bezel closest to the dial gets printed first, and then the next layer, the next concentric ring around the dial is printed, and then so on and so on and so on, because each layer is 40 microns, which is very, very small. But if
really thin.
If you create that angle perfectly, then each layer will be 40 microns, and each step of the bezel will be 40 microns. And so that design feature was on purpose, and we wanted it to look like you're stepping down into the dial, even though those are just the layers in which it's printed.
So sort of like very small tree rings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. Which I grew up on a Christmas tree farm, so that's my thing. Is count the rings, see how old it is.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Well, and the amazing thing is you're using such new, innovative technology, but in the way you do it, it really it still gives it a very vintage vibe. I mean, it's bringing these two worlds together, and I just think it really is a cool technique to use for these. But you did go to CNC for some of the newer releases, like I said, the railroad, and I think the military, right, as well. What was the decision there to move away from the 3D printing from those lines and go more towards the CNC?
The fact that we could do it all ourselves. We have our own CNC machines here in Fort Collins, Colorado, where we're based, and for especially the military edition, we needed to own as much of that design and engineering and manufacturing process as possible, because it has to be absolutely perfect, and we're only making 50 of them. So to have a contract manufacturer do any piece of that would cost a fortune. And it wouldn't be as good because we weren't standing there watching the machine, making sure it was perfect. And so that's why we went CNC machining and using billets to make those.
Yep.
In the future, we're going to keep making 3D printed titanium watches forever. The coolest part of it is we can constantly change and upgrade those designs constantly, all the time, and I think that will help us come out with new things more often if we use printing still. But it'll just help us kind of like keep that design side of our business alive.
That's amazing.
And it's flexible.
I'm going to show my nerdy side. You have Haas machines, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a racer and a Formula One fan, and
cool.
So I know about Haas. So most of our listeners have a
we're
blank
working
look
on
on their face right now.
we're working on a huge partnership with Autodesk and Haas. Autodesk is the company that makes the software that we use for design work, and Haas is it's HAAS, is the equipment that we use for CNC machining. And those machines are actually made in Los Angeles in a massive factory. So even our machine is made in USA, which is pretty cool. But we're working on a big partnership with them because my business partner, Tyler, taught himself how to use both the software and the machines via just YouTube. He was a math major, so he was not even an engineer like me. We just figured it out. And they love that. And so they're going to basically use us as an example customer in their marketing, which will be, I think, pretty sweet.
Yeah. That is very cool.
Well, Autodesk has been around a long time. I know people I worked for people who used to work there. So
I've tried. Credit to you guys because I've watched lots of videos and I still can't figure out how to do that. So maybe I'm just not artistic enough, but I cannot figure out Autodesk.
It's just time. Yeah, lots and lots of time.
Yeah.
But it's worth it. Now we don't actually, we have a 3D printer, but we just kind of use it to make fun stuff for the office. We can go from idea to CNC machine metal product in an afternoon.
Wow.
God, that's
those machines have changed so many industries. They're making prosthetics for birds and all kinds of, any material you can imagine, I believe, from metal to, silicone. And
it is really incredible.
Well, and using that technique for your watches, you can customize every single one. When you get your customers who have an heirloom, then you're just changing your programming, and it's perfect. So,
yeah, and one of the things we're going to do at some point, we have a huge list, if you can imagine, but there's no one makes replicas of the vintage parts anymore. And obviously all of these antique watch companies are out of business. So when you're restoring a pocket watch, you have to scour the internet to try to find a screw or a balance wheel or whatever. And so we are perfectly capable, and we could do it today. We don't have the bandwidth, but we're going to at some point. We're going to make replacement parts for the vintage watch restoration industry. So if you are a watchmaker and you're fixing a pocket watch that was made in 1880 and they only made 10 of them, there's no way you're going to find a screw for that. But Vortic Watch Company can make it. So you can call us and send us an example, and we'll have it to you next week, and you can finish that restoration project for your customer.
That's very cool. So you're helping keeping the stuff alive, even if it's not something that you're selling, which is amazing.
Yeah, we live in a gold rush
and
here.
Caveat on that, it's not anytime soon.
Okay.
We have constant requests to do that right now, and I keep saying yes, we'll get there, but we're talking 2025 probably by the time we get to that idea.
Well, it's not like you guys have anything else on your plate besides starting another brand and
having a
starting
5-year
a watch
lawsuit
school and getting through a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
Come on, you got
the
all
pandemic.
kinds of
time. Yeah, and I probably should spend some time with my kids. I got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at home, got to be a dad too. So a little bit of balance here and there.
For sure. Wow.
Well, you've certainly accomplished a lot at a young age. You're an impressive person.
I mean, huge respect to what you've done and what you've had to go through to get to where you are today. it really is. It's a great watch story, but it's a great American story. I mean, and that's what, we're always looking for unique things on Love and Watches. When we review a watch, it's usually something that's very unique, or when we have someone on the podcast, it's usually something that's, we try to find unique stuff, and it doesn't get much more unique and innovative than what you guys have done with Vortex. So huge props to you for getting to where you have today.
Thank you. It's kind of for me just an honor to be able to lead this team, and all they do is take my crazy ideas and bring them to life. So I'm just having fun.
That's fantastic. Well, as we wrap here, is there one thing that if a customer or even more importantly a potential customer hears the term Vortic Watches, what is the one thing that you really want them to understand, or what do you want to stick in their mind about your brand and your company?
Yeah, I mean, it would be our tagline: America wasn't assembled, it was built. And that's what we've said from the beginning, and the meaning is American made used to be synonymous with quality. And I'm talking the early 1900s, right? Ford, building cars. And we still are. We can make amazing things here. But typically when you think about luxury wristwatches, you think about the Swiss. And I like to say that tagline, America wasn't assembled, it was built, because we build watches here, 100% American made, with American made machines and all that stuff. But it's not because we're just hardcore patriots and that's what we love and it has to be made in USA. It's not about that at all. It's about doing it the right way, with the right people and the right tools to achieve the perfect quality that can be an heirloom passed down for generations, just like these pocket watches were.
Wow, that's awesome. And I love what you said there at the end, because made in the USA needs to be more than just a tagline. If it says made in the USA and the quality is terrible, then it doesn't mean anything. So I really like
Yep.
what you added there. And I think it's a great sentiment. And I will tell you that I think you've been successful, because you brought PG to tears here. So it's a neat story. And we just, we really admire the brand. So RT, we know you're busy and you have other important engagements besides us, but we just really wanted to thank you for taking the time to be on the show. And for our listeners, if you want to learn more, go to vorticwatches.com, VORTIC watches.com. They're just incredible pieces. Personally, I think underpriced given what they are. It's just the value is absolutely amazing. So RT, thank you so much. Look forward to having you on again as you develop the brand and your new brand and everything else going on. We love the story, and it's been a great time talking to you.
Thank you so much for following along and having me. I really, really appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll talk again soon. Thanks. And there you have it. What a fun time with RT. Wasn't that great?
Yep.
Neat guy. Really cool guy.
He's accomplished, like I said, he's accomplished so much.
Man, if I'd accomplished what he's accomplished at 29, man, it kind of makes me look back and go, God, maybe I should have applied myself more. Just really neat guy and amazing head on his shoulders, and really built a neat brand. And now that he's past all that ridiculousness.
He's endured a lot, but there's so much potential there to help so many people and create a new, more growth in an economy and an industry that used to be huge here.
Yeah.
And all over the world. So it'll be really fun to watch the evolution of that.
It will be, and it was exciting to hear about the new brand that's going to be coming out in a couple years, and the new Watchmakers initiative. Just so many things that the guy's got a full plate, and he just keeps piling stuff on. I mean, he's got a lot of energy and a lot of drive, and it's going to be real fun to watch what he does in the next few years, and we'll definitely have him back on the show. I don't see why we wouldn't as they embark on all these new projects. So That was cool. That was fun. We hope you guys enjoyed it.
Well, and I apologize if my voice sounds a little scratchy, because we've had smoke in the air for months.
Yeah, it's not been good. So we're both we've been suffering a little on the allergy front, and
we're eking through
sore throats and stuff, but everyone is. I mean, it's been a tough year for fires, as we all know. Yeah, I think that's it. So as always, please give us a follow on Instagram at Love and Watches. We're available pretty much anywhere. If you guys are listening, that means you found us. But especially if you're listening on what is it, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, take a second to just give us a quick review. We haven't read a review for a while, but we do read those occasionally, and if we do, you'll get some swag, and got some really, really nice reviews. So we appreciate everyone that has taken the time to write a quick review. So if you can, please do that.
And I've even gotten some DMs from people suggesting, we can't hear this person's voice on your thing. So they've helped us with our technology and asked us to, talk about certain things. So we really do appreciate that. There are times when I don't check the DMs daily, depending on what's going on, but I check both accounts, both my Perpetual Girl and the Love and Watches account. And
we're going to be delivering another Love and Our Listeners spotlight here in the next show or two. So for those of you that may not know what that is, we bring on a listener, just a collector and someone that listens to the show. We talk to them about their collection and what they, just their life. And we've done a couple now, and it's been really fun. And so if you're interested in being on the show, just reach out to us. You can send us an email at admin@loveandwatches.com, or you can DM us on Instagram, and PG will get back to you. And if it makes sense, we'll get you on the show, get you on the schedule, and we're starting to build a good list. So, those are fun. I think for me, I love interviewing. It was fun with RT, and we had, VJ from Oris, and we've had Formex on. I love bringing those types of interviews to you guys, but that's my favorite thing when we have our listeners on the show. That just, for me, that's it.
We love talking to the manufacturers, where they come from, where the watches come from, and then they get to the customer, and then we get to talk to the actual end user of the watch.
Yes.
And they tell us about that and how their watch collecting journey,
which is different for all of you out there,
it's
right? I mean,
amazing.
Yeah, it's neat to hear the stories. So definitely let us know if you'd like to be on the show. I think that's it for today.
It is.
Are we good?
So take care, everybody, and
stay safe, and keep hanging in there. And hopefully 2020 will be over soon, and this will all be behind us. But yeah, in the meantime, stay safe, and thank you as always for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.
Take care.
Bye.